To this day, the mirror principle is still one of the most profound and impactful laws of the universe I have ever come across. It has literally changed my life for the better and the lives of many others as well. Now, for myself, it helped me to go from being broke, directionless, and even homeless at one point to traveling the world, falling in love with my amazing girlfriend, and having a thriving six-figure business where I get to do what I love and what actually aligns to me for my work. All of that was made possible through learning about and, most importantly, applying the principles of the mirror principle. And I really do believe it is so difficult, almost impossible to shift in quantum leap type of ways or powerful ways if you do not learn about the mirror principle, become aware of it, and then of course start applying it in your favor. Now, some people may be able to shift through accidentally using this principle where they are unaware that they were using it. But at the end of the day, whether they were aware or not, the mirror principle was acting in their life. Now, it is much easier to get it to work for you if you are aware of what it actually is, what the rules of the game are, and then use it intentionally so that it serves you on your journey. Because the mirror principle operates in your life powerfully whether you're aware of it or not. So might as well learn the rules of the game to how it works, be able to use it for yourself, and then start to apply it consciously. So in this video, we will dive deeper into what the mirror principle is, what the rules to the game are, and of course, give you the tools to start using it to affect your life in big ways right away. So let's first cover really quickly what the mirror principle is, and just to make it very simple, in a nutshell, the mirror principle says that the outer world follows the inner world. Your outer physical reality is simply a mirror image, a reflection of what's going on in your inner world. And I'll describe to you what the inner world is so that's not so confusing, and so that you can actually practically do things within that world that start to mirror out into your physical. But essentially, if you see someone who is in a certain state of mind all the time, let's say, and feels a certain way all the time, let's say, they're usually going to see the reflections of that via the mirror principle in their physical life. Now, to give you a very, very simple example, if you know someone who complains and moans all the time, is always in emotions like anger or guilt or fear or pride or things of that nature, and this is kind of their main mode of operation, you've probably noticed that their life isn't going too smoothly. They probably have a lot of other things that are causing them problems in their physical world. Maybe they have trouble with their relationships in their life or don't have any good relationships. Maybe they have trouble with money, or maybe as soon as it comes in, they lose it or whatever else. They probably hate their job, whatever else it is. And ultimately, this is the mirror principle in effect, because if their inner world is that tumultuous, they're going to have that same chaos appear in the outer world. But this works the other way around as well. If you have someone who is genuinely feeling good most of the time, and what does that mean? It means simply entertaining feelings like joy and peace and gratitude, willingness, courage, acceptance, things of that nature. They will then see that reflected in their outer world. So we are going to get a little more granular here, but just in a nutshell, to keep in mind that what the mirror principle is saying is that the outer world follows the inner world. Your outer world is simply a reflection, a mirror image of what you have been doing in the inner world. It is simply an energetic history. The energy that creates this history is coming from what we call the inner world, and it is being reflected out into your physical life. And this is why people who learn about the mirror principle and then commit to actually applying it in their favor start to see changes in their life pretty quickly. In fact, we take people through a reality creation program with coaching and accountability and just some of the best material you could ever hope for, but we make sure we keep them on course, keeping them applying the mirror principle, and they start seeing pretty radical changes for some of them within a month. Things like whole new jobs, whole new relationships, all money coming out of nowhere. Why? Because we're getting them to create change on the planes of existence, which I'm going to get into in a moment, that actually help to move things in your life, that then get reflected out into the outer world and create change. So let's get into this whole inner world part, because you might be wondering, well, what even is that? The outer world follows the inner world. Great, I get it. The outer world is the physical world, the world we're used to, the world of the five senses. Gotcha. But what is the inner world? Well, the first thing we need to recognize here is that you're actually a three-part being. You're not just physical. You're not just a physical being moving in this physical world and that's it, right? You are a three-part being. And those two other parts are what make up the inner world. Now, these two other parts are the mental side of you, so the mental world, and you can think of this just like your thoughts, the imaging, visualizations that you have, just anything that has to do with the mind in that regard, the thinking mind, is the mental world. It's not something that's physical, right? When you think a thought, it doesn't just appear in physicality, right? It is something that is non-physical. And then you also have the spiritual side of you, the spiritual realm of existence. And this is your connection to something bigger, something that is divine, something that you come from. And it is also the emotional self, energy in motion. So you can also interchange the word spirit for energy. So you can think of the spiritual side of yourself as the energetic part of yourself. And the way I like to look at this is it's the emotional part of yourself, because emotion simply is energy in motion. And so the way we can look at this is influencing your inner world is influenced by how you are feeling, what energy, emotion or energy in motion you are resonating in or dwelling in. And then of course the mental, which is a lot easier for people to conceptualize, is what thoughts are you thinking? What images are you visualizing? And a lot of times these two planes of existence will influence each other and always correspond with each other. For example, if you feel really good, you usually have thoughts that correspond with that and feel really good and are good positive thoughts. If you think thoughts of gratitude, for example, if you think of things that just light you up and you're very happy about, you're probably going to have corresponding feelings to that. But the opposite is true too. If you start feeling really guilty, your thoughts are probably not rainbows and sunshines and walking the beach or whatever else it is, or a wonderful moment. They're probably going to be things where you felt guilty. You're going to have corresponding thoughts and imagery that go with that feelings. And the same thing too, you can elicit emotions from the thoughts by thinking of something. For example, if I tell you to think of an absolutely exciting or loving or just joyful memory, you'll probably notice that you get this joyful feeling starting to build in your body, right? So they go with each other. Now, these are the two that make up the inner world of the mental and the spiritual planes of existence. They are your inner world, while the physical, the actual five senses, what you're doing in the physical world, is of course the physical world. So when we're saying the outer world follows the inner, we are saying that your physical self, your physical world, is following what the spiritual and mental are doing. The physical is essentially an effect based on the causes in the spiritual and mental. Now, why is it that the outer world follows the inner world? Why does the outer world, the physical, take its lead from the spiritual and mental? And this is something I've talked about on this channel a lot, but the reason being is our reality, this reality that we live in, is actually way less physical than you probably realize. In fact, it is said that if you took all of the physical stuff in the world and you removed all the empty space and energy from all of it, that you would be able to fit everything into a sugar cube. And it means that our universe, our reality, is not that physical at all. That in fact, our reality is 99.999999% empty space and energy. And all that you see around you is mainly made up of this stuff and just appears physical. And at the physical side, there is physicality in this reality, but it makes up about 0.000001% of reality. And that's where you get sayings like, if you were to remove all the space and energy from everything, the physical stuff that remains would be able to fit into a sugar cube. Now, why am I telling you this? Because the physical comes out of the non-physical. It is a subset of the superset being the non-physical. And the reason the outer world follows the inner is because the outer world quite literally comes from the inner. The physical is born out of the non-physical. This is why you will start receiving the physical equivalent of the things you are doing on the spiritual and mental realms or planes of your existence. This is the mirror principle. The outer world follows the inner world. And so what you are doing on the spiritual and mental planes of existence have a huge, the biggest effect on what happens in your physical world, what shows up, what opportunities, what people, what lessons, and so on. So we can even look at quotes from, famous physicists and scientists down through the years, like Einstein saying that there is no out there. Out there, I'm sure many of you know the very famous Tesla quote where he goes over, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. He's not saying think in terms of physicality. He's not saying, hey, look at the physical world and then you will see the secrets of the universe. He is saying to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, all things that are non-physical but absolutely influence the physical. And if you look throughout history, even before modern science, and you can look back at some of the most famous philosophers that helped to create some of our worldviews, most of them, the further back you go, agree with this view of the world, that things are made up mainly from the non-physical, where the physical comes from the non-physical. So why is it that the greatest minds throughout history believed this? Well, because it was actually observably true when you knew how to look at it, or when you actually opened your mind to it. The physical absolutely does follow the non-physical. The outer world follows the inner world. And again, don't take my word for it, or the many, again, geniuses down the ages who have known this, researched this, seen this. You can test this out for yourself by simply following this idea of cultivating your inner world and seeing then what happens in your outer. Now, how do we actually go about utilizing the mirror principle? So let's say you do want to give this a try and you're going to commit to doing this and you want to see if it works for yourself, but you're actually going to do the work and trust the process. Because if you go in with this closed-minded skepticism, you're just going to get a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. But if you truly commit to doing it, to really actually wanting to find out if this will work, you got to start putting more focus on the inner world, right? If the outer world is born out of the inner world, but we're not giving attention to the inner world and we're trying to create change from the physical, we're going to move either very slowly or not at all. And so we have to start giving more focus to what we're doing in the inner world. This is why you get quotes, for example, like this, where it says that you get what you think about most of the time. And to make that even more powerful, I would say you get what you think about and feel about most of the time. And that's what you're getting when you mix the spiritual and mental together. What you feel about, the energy that you are resonating on, you are dwelling in, and what you think about, where you are on the mental plane of existence, these two things will start creating what comes about in your physical. You see, at the end of the day, especially with manifestation, especially with bringing more of what you want into your life, one of the only things that matter, as in turns into matter, is your energetic relationship to what just happened, right? If you're going around just continually reacting to everything in your physical world, what are you doing to your inner world? What are you doing to the spiritual and mental planes? Well, now you're suddenly in anger and frustration and guilt and fear and all these different things which get projected out and then attracted back. You're thinking thoughts of that way, oh, screw this person, screw that situation, whatever else it is, and you're getting back. But if you can go through your life and almost ignore the sense data and keep yourself focused on what it is you want from an inner world perspective, and create this relationship to everything that happens where you are not reacting, but you are responding intentionally, things will begin to shift. You start doing that, and then the mirror principle will take effect and start giving you a different image in the outer world. So let's get into some tools you can use to start utilizing this right away. Having the awareness, like we mentioned, is so crucial because now that you know the rules to the game a little bit better, you can play the game a little bit better. I like to use the example, if you're playing Mario and you don't know the rules to the game, you don't know how to make him turn left or right or jump on the turtles or whatever else it is, you'll never get past level 1 unless you just luck your way through it, right? But when you know the rules to the game, you know how to jump, you know that this thing gives you a power up, you know that getting coins is a good thing and you want to jump on the head of these things and not those ones because there's spikes on them, you suddenly are able to get to the end of level 1 pretty easily, and then level 2, and then level 3. And so knowing the rules to the game is crucial as you evolve on your journey here on Earth, in your life. But then we need to start having ways to be able to apply this. And so the first tool is the one I kind of just gave you, which is really reacting differently to the things going on around you. So we can call this reaction reducing. Like I mentioned, really one of the biggest things that matters, as in again, what's going to determine the matter that comes into your life, the physical stuff, is You not reacting to everything that's happening to you, or your energetic relationship to what has just happened. And again, so many people allow so many little things to derail them, right? Someone cuts them off in traffic, their whole day's ruined, and now they're in an inner world place where they're thinking negatively and feeling negatively. They spill something, boom, same thing. For a whole hour, you're sending out this energy of negativity, of guilt, of fear, of shame, right? Make a mistake, same thing. And right, so if we can get in the habit of whenever this happens, snapping ourselves out of it, taking a step back and being the observer, just allowing that feeling to go and take its course, and any feeling in the body unresisted will leave in about 60 to 90 seconds. So if you're feeling anger, and instead of hooking into it and now aligning with that anger, you just snap out of it and just watch it, observe it, feel it out without attaching yourself to it, in about 60 to 90 seconds, and sometimes even shorter when you get good at this, an unresisted emotion will have to leave by its own accord. It will, because you're not hooking into it. You're not giving it more energy. And so if you go through your day aiming to do this, in reducing your reaction to things that you don't want to continually create in your life, you will notice certain immediate changes pretty quickly a few days into doing this, especially a week into doing this, if you're really vigilant about it. Now, if you hook into emotions like joy, you can enhance it, right? So you don't have to be the observer in those situations, because that's what you want more of in your life. And so if something's making you feel very grateful, you don't need to take the step back then and go, okay, I'm going to watch this gratitude. I'm not going to hook into it though, because I'm assuming you actually want more of that in your life, right? So those ones absolutely hook into and allow yourself to go with that wave of gratitude or joy or whatever else. But when those negative reactionary emotions come up, just take a step back, observe them, allow them to go on their way, and don't react. Next is committing to the inner size. Remember, if our reality is 99.9+% empty space and energy, and only that tiny fraction matter or physical matter reality, then where should more of our attention and focus be if we want to shift and transform our life? Should it be on that tiny percentage that most people focus on that makes up very little of this reality? Or should we focus on the thing that literally creates that tiny percentage? Well, in my eyes, it's better to focus on the thing that creates that tiny percentage. Does that mean you won't do anything physically? No, not at all. But wouldn't it be better to do things physically from a place that's more inspired, which gets you to move in a different way, that moves you closer to your goals? Probably, right? And we only can do that through doing the inner size. Now, the inner size is probably what you've already guessed. Things like meditation, things like visualization, things when you quiet the noise of the sense data and the external world and you go inwardly. If you're aware of brainwave states, you're lowering your brainwave states more into an alpha brainwave state. So you're usually in beta when you're in your waking mode, kind of going through life. If you go lower on the brainwave states, you get to alpha, and then theta, which is kind of the magic zone you want to be in meditating. And then there's even delta and a gamma and a few others as well. But ultimately, you want to be able to lower your brainwave states so that you're now activating the inner world. The inner world is becoming more loud and more real than the outer world. And again, when you're doing that, you are now activating and accessing and having more intention within that 99.9+% that makes up this reality. And this is what you do in this world that's going to start being reflected in the outer world. So if you're not already, I would highly recommend, along with the reducing reacting exercise, which is a more moment-to-moment thing, to have some kind of daily meditation, visualization practice. And again, there's really no overdoing this. Some people like to do just 10 minutes a day. I would say do at least a little bit more than that. If 20, 30 minutes is all you can do now, start building the habit. But if you can get yourself up to about an hour a day or even more, you're in a great place if you're doing, for example, passive active meditations. Because again, the more you're doing that, the more you're moving the needle towards what you actually want to bring about. The more you are activating things in the inner world that have to be reflected in the outer world through opportunities, through people coming in or people leaving, through lessons that need to be learned before you can move on to the next thing. It's what magnetizes what you need and what you want to you. Now, if this is something you don't want to do alone and you want to commit to getting the best possible results and fastest results possible with all of this, with creating your reality, you can check out our reality creation program, which you'll find more information about through the first link down below. It's actually a case study that goes over how it works, why it works, and also the results that other people get. And it gives a few little lessons in there that you can take away from it immediately. And again, this is like our main program where I coach people through this We meet every single week. We go through some of the best material. You go through it with a peer group of elevated peers, meaning everyone is in a certain energy that elevates everyone, where they're essentially midwives to your dreams rather than dream killers. So when you're talking about this kind of stuff, they're not going to roll their eyes. They're going to get excited and want to help you to continually grow your awareness of all these things and expand more and more into your vision, manifestations, and so on. So that's something you want to do. You can check that out through the first link. Now, what I also recommend you do is go watch this video next, because it's going to tie in so beautifully with what we've talked about here. And this is going to go over what's called shadow work. And when you mix shadow work, which is clearing out the gunk in the inner world, it makes all of this so much easier and stops you from creating things in your life that are unfavorable, and makes it way easier to manifest positively in your life.